Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an all-new edition of On the Mark TV and Radio from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwood Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and in studio with me today is Brady LePage, who is a integral part of Westfield Community Programming. He worked on the crew that brought the Berkshire Theater Critics Awards to media. We all went to Pittsfield together to do that. He's a part of our staff here. He's a senior at Westfield Technical Academy, concentrating in internet technology. And he's been on the airwaves here before, and I'm really glad to have him this morning. Good to see you, Brady.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
You know, Brady, one of the things we talk about, and you're sort of an expert in, is IT stuff. And you'll go on from here to college and major in it in some level or another. But we were talking about internet safety, and a lot of people either got upgraded phones or new phones or tablets or computers over the holidays, and something, if they're not careful, they're going to get scammed here as 2025 begins. What are some of the things you'd recommend to somebody if they got a tablet or a phone for the holidays? How do you keep it safe from scams?
Well, the first thing is really educating yourself, taking a step back on the accounts that you have. So if you were to get a new phone or something like that, when you install apps on there, if you have a Google account or an email, making sure that the password is secure and keeping track of what you're putting on the device. You're not downloading files or applications that you don't know what it's going to do to your device or what you're adding on there. And also keeping in mind if it's a computer or a device that you can download like an antivirus software, if it has a firewall, for example, like a Windows computer, you have Windows Defender Firewall, which is on there, making sure that's enabled and you are keeping it updated, running updates on your device, because those include security patches. Those are some of the most basic things that from the get-go you should be doing.
What if you got a Mac? Is a Mac different?
A Mac is same thing. You can install security software on there, and they also make sure to keep it updated, because the updates are a big thing. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't want to update it because it's annoying. It restarts," or "Oh, I don't want to update it because it changes the way it looks." Well, on computers and phones and tablets, those updates a lot of times they include the security patches for vulnerabilities. And even if you update it, it looks like nothing's changed. In the background, a lot of those security backdoors have been patched, or bugs in programs and things like that have been worked on.
A question somebody asked me to ask you. They have they do their online banking on their laptop, but not their phone or their tablet, because their laptop is at home and they feel it's a more secure place than it is if you're, tapping into Wi-Fi somewhere else. Should you do banking online? Should you do bill pays online or Venmos and things? And if you do, are you safer doing it at home than you are sitting in your car somewhere?
So I'll kind of break that down to a couple of sub-questions almost. So first thing with the online banking itself is as safe as the software that your bank uses, right? So it's the same thing as doing, sending an email or something like that. So if you're using online, I have People's Bank, so I have the app on my phone and I can go on there, and that's perfectly secure to do. You have to make sure you have a good password for your account and nobody has access to your device, right? If somebody gets access to my phone and has my password, they can get into my online banking and they can, move money around or whatever. In terms of networks, right, home versus out in public, it's going to depend on the network that you connect to. At home, that's your network. It's a private network. So the risk of somebody being on that network is very, very low, like a bad actor. If you're somewhere, let's say at a coffee shop or at a shopping mall and you're using that open network, you're relying on the security of that network. You're relying on However, the administrator set up that network. So oftentimes devices on that network can see each other. So you and I could be at Starbucks, and I might not even know you, but I could see that your computer is on that network. And that's a possible security risk. So you do have to be careful. Best practice is to make sure that things are isolated, but in the IT world, unfortunately, not everybody follows the best practice. And also, you can come across places where potential bad actors have set up networks to fool people. So I could sit in the parking lot outside of a coffee shop and have a router broadcasting free Wi-Fi, and it's not coming from that coffee shop. It's just sitting there so that you connect to it thinking, oh, this is great, I've got internet. And now you're connecting straight to me, and I'm taking all your information, and I can see what's coming across. These online banking softwares and apps and providers, they do encrypt data, so it's not just clear text coming across the network. So people aren't just looking at every single thing that you're sending. Yeah. But there is still a risk. So you have to be careful. I always would recommend if you're going to do something, either do it on your home network, and anytime you're on a public network, if you have to use a public network, use a VPN client on your phone, which you can go online, you can download. I know Norton's got a VPN, and you can install on your phone or your computer, and it helps keep you segmented from what's happening on that open network or that public network.
So people get their new devices, and they're not quite sure how to use them. And it's always been said to me, ask a teenager or ask your kid, because your kid knows more than you do. So you're a teenager, and I'm sure people come up to you and they know that you do IT and that's your specialty, and they come up and all day long ask you questions about, how do I do this? How do I download that? What do I do? What are the biggest scams that people are being subjected to right now?
I think the top scam is somebody faking themselves as either a bank or a government agency and sending an email or sending a phone call, or the communication scams. The email scams I've seen a lot of lately. People get an email that says, we're from Bank of America or People's Bank or wherever a random bank is. And they say, you have had money withdrawn, we need your account information. And so their goal with that scam is just to get you to give them your account information that they don't have, and then now they've got access to your account because they've got all your information. And what they'll do is they'll get an email address. They might have support@peoplesbank.com, but they've added an extra L to People's Bank. So on the first go around, you might not notice that because they're trying to catch you in that time of panic, like, oh my God, $4,000 has been taken from my account. So you're quick to respond like, I've got to do something about this. And you're not stopping to look and say, the email address has an extra L, it's fake.
I got one of those a couple of weeks ago. We were talking before we went on the air, and People's Bank, it was a text. And I've never done any texting of any kind with People's Bank. And People's Bank was misspelled. And it said to go to this link. And somebody had, did I approve of a $800 transfer from my savings to my checking account? And I realized it was bogus right away. And then I went on my computer and checked to make sure that it was bogus, that there had been no transfers made. But it was so, if I hadn't looked at it carefully, I would have thought it was People's Bank.
Yeah, and you did the absolute best thing, and that's to stop, take a step back, and really check from a different angle and see what's going on with your account or what's going on with the status of whatever they're talking about. Most of the time it's an account, because if they're claiming that this amount of money's been taken out or this account's been frozen, if that actually has happened, there's no harm in calling the bank or even showing up in person. If I got a message saying there was $4,000 out of my account and I didn't have online banking and I was freaking out, I would just, if I could, drive right down the street to the bank and go sort it out there, because that's a far safer plan than just acting right in the moment. You could get scammed. You could lose money. And also take a step back and say, do I even have an account with these people? I've seen emails come in that say, we're Netflix and you owe us $1,000 in back payments on your account. These people don't even have Netflix.
Exactly.
But they get freaked out because it's this huge red text and email that says, you owe us money. And that's scary, especially for some of the populations that are less technically inclined. The scammers, unfortunately, they prey upon that. They see that people in that sense of urgency are willing to do whatever it takes. So really taking that step back is important.
There are a lot of scams that are out there, and somebody's asked me, if you turn your computer off when you're not using it, I mean, totally shut it down, are you safer than if you leave it on all day long while you're about your day?
Well, of course, if your computer's off and completely powered off, it's not negotiating on the network, so there's nothing that's coming to and from it. So from that perspective, yes, it is much safer. Sometimes it's important to have your computer on if it's like running automatic updates or something like that. But if you don't need your computer on and you want an easy way to secure it, yeah, certainly turning it off, it's going to be the most secure because nothing's going to be communicating with it.
And what about your phone? Do you turn your phone off at a certain time and then reboot it to make sure that it's okay, or do you leave your phone on 24/7?
Well, my phone ends up staying on 24/7 unless it ends up dying. For everybody, it's going to be different because you might be in a position where somebody needs to communicate with you. Or you might have to have it on in case somebody needs to call for work or whatever. It is good to reboot if you're having trouble with it. But a lot of the modern smartphones now will automatically update, or they'll give you a prompt that says you're in need of updates. Updates, like I was talking about before, are really the biggest thing that you end up needing to do on a mobile device or a tablet computer for security, because they fix the security issues that companies are aware of. And it doesn't fix everything because it only fixes the issues that companies are aware of, but the issues that companies are aware of are the ones that a lot of people are taking advantage of because they've been publicized. So that's really the biggest thing is running updates. You don't necessarily have to turn it off or reboot all the time unless you're having issues and you want to do a troubleshooting step of rebooting.
Another thing, if you have Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky or TikTok or any of the social media channels, I know that on Facebook you get friend requests from people that are always your friends. So somehow their information has gotten into the hands of someone else. How do you protect yourself on social media?
That's an interesting one because a couple weeks ago I actually just had an instance of that where somebody on social media, it wasn't actually them, it was a fake account, had requested to follow me and then asked if I could give them a verification code for an account. And I kind of knew this, but I knew of this person, but I wasn't super close with them. So it was one of those scenarios I was like, well, I don't know what's going on with this. And I reached out to that person on the other account because they had an account that I was following. This was on Instagram. And then there was a second account that requested to follow me. And that was the one that was messaging me. I said, is this you? And they said, no, that's not me. That's a fake account. And so I blocked that account, out of security. So if somebody requests to follow you, if you have another way of communicating with them, whether it's you already follow them on another account, some people have multiple accounts if it's like a business account or something like that, or if you have their phone number, an email, or you just see them, then make sure it's really them.
Yeah,
or take a look at the account and make sure it's really them.
One of the things I note on Facebook is I get friend requests from people I'm already friends with. Then I know it's fake. But on Instagram, or even on Facebook, my personal page is not public. It's only for my friends. I do have a business page, which is public. And I get comments when I post publicly on something from somebody that would like to be friends. And I know I check their profile first. If it's a private profile, I don't do it. And if I don't know them, I don't do it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of friend requests out there on Facebook and Instagram that are totally fake people, and you shouldn't like everybody that wants to be your friend, because you can open up a can of worms clicking on something that you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And people that request to be your friend that some of them aren't even real people behind the account. So some of them could be scammers, right? They could be people trying to trick you, but some of them are just computer programs, or we call them bots. And they're just to create spam. Or some people, if you're looking at someone else's post, will get bots just to drive up the comments or drive up the likes or just the engagement, because then it makes their page more popular or whatever.
I mean,
which I always thought was interesting.
Yeah, I'm astounded, because I manage the Facebook pages of a couple of clients of mine. Plus, I have a personal page, and then I have my own page for my public side. And I'll get these comments after a post to say, I'd really like to get you to know you better. I've sent you a friend request, but you haven't responded, kind of thing. And I know immediately it's a bot.
A bot, yeah. And that's, our scammers will use the bots like that. They'll send it out and they'll say, well, whoever responds, that's who we're going after.
What does bot actually mean?
Bot, well, they just have used the term bot, kind of like a robot. It's not really a human.
Robotic, okay.
Robotic, yeah. It's just it's a coding script, really, that runs, and it just is an account that sends out comments. It looks for accounts and sends a message to look like a real person that's saying, hey, let's chat, let's reach out. And then once you actually message the bots, 9 times out of 10, it is a scammer on the other end that says, okay, well, we caught one. It's like throwing out a bunch of fishing poles and saying, who's going to bite?
Who's going to bite?
And reeling in the ones that bite.
So people should never give out any kind of personal information online.
No, on social media, never give away any type of passwords. If somebody asks you for a verification code, don't give them a verification code, because what people will do is they'll go and try and log into your account. They'll say, oh, I forgot the password. It'll say, we'll send you a verification code. And then you as the user would get a verification code, right? And they'll take that code that you give them and they'll reset your password and lock you out. So don't give away any verification codes, links, password resets, even things like a phone number. If you know somebody personally and they need your phone number and they find you on social media, then you have to make sure it's them. And most of the time, it would be somebody that you could see in person, or you might know through somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten a few requests for that. We've been trying to reach you. We'd like to text you something. And I know that people in general would not ask for that on social media, so I ignore it.
Yeah, and for you as someone that has a business account too, it becomes a tough battle between wanting to be secure, but also, say if I reached out and said, I need to contact you about, whatever, a show or something like that, and I needed a phone number and I didn't know you, I was approaching you, that's tough, because you want to make sure I'm a legit person, but also you want to make sure that you're contacting customers and clients and things like that.
So I guess what we're saying here is use common sense.
Use common sense and really take a step back. Taking that step back to look at things from multiple angles, whether it's making sure that the email coming in from People's Bank really is People's Bank, making sure that the person contacting you is who they say they are, making sure you even have an account with somebody that's asking you for money, and looking at a profile of someone who wants your contact information, because you can look at a profile and tell if it is somebody. You can really kind of dig deep, right? If I went to message you on Instagram, you could look and see, well, who else is following Brady LePage? Or how long has this account been up? Because if there is an account that has thousands of followers, but it's only been up for a day, that is pretty suspicious. That's something that I would look at and say, wow, that might be a bot.
How many people come to you on an ongoing basis and say, is this cool or not?
A handful, family, some friends. We do work in the senior centers through SHOP here at school, so we'll have questions about that every now and again. People will ask about, is this safe, or how do I do this? How do I look at accounts and things like that?
Yeah, and you've done that. You've been over to the senior center. And didn't you do a program for them on here?
I haven't done a program here yet, but we have done some outreach over there and talking to the seniors. I think we're going to look at doing some more of that this year.
Well, your advice is really very good. We only have a minute left. How did you get interested in IT in the first place?
I've always been interested in the way things work in general, just the inner workings of everything. And computers, I've enjoyed computers. Ever since I was little, I just thought it was so fascinating, these machines that can do things. And I wanted to be a part of the magic, a part of the behind the scenes. It's just fun to see the work that I can do come to light. And I like tinkering around. I like playing around, like just the everything being new, everything being not futuristic, but like so technical. I don't know. It's just enjoyable to play around with technology, and the advancements, and also just seeing what it can do, and seeing all the applications. Because when I came into this school freshman year, I didn't even think about how technology could be applied somewhere like here in the studio. And now here I am doing all this work because it's so enjoyable to be a part of that magic. Like when I was at the Berkshire Theater Critic Awards, I was there doing the cameras and helping out with that. I enjoy being a part of a production like that and seeing the final product.
Well, we're really glad you're a part of us. I mean, you are just so great to work with, and I appreciate the fact that you would come and spend a half hour on one of my programs and just talk about internet safety.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hopefully I didn't make your head spin too much.
No, you didn't. And I'm going to ask you before we go to break here if you'll come back and do this again.
Oh, of course.
Terrific.
Anytime. We've
been chatting with Brady LePage, who is a senior at Westfield Technical Academy, concentrating in IT. He's a part of our production staff here at Westfield Community Programming, and we're really glad to have him here. We're going to take a break. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll return with On the Mark after these messages.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. If you've missed a part of today's program, or you want to watch it again or share it with friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. And one of the reasons you're going to want to share this with friends, my next guest is my friend Michelle Joyner, who is an actor, director, dramaturg, and all kinds of things in stage and screen. And she's a Westfield native, grew up right here in Westfield and got her start here in Westfield. This last year has been a very busy year for her. A play that she directed at its beginning at the Great Barrington Public Theater is the story of Katharine Graham, the publisher of the Washington Post, and in the new year is going on to other theaters. And she recently directed the world premiere of True Art, a play by Jessica Provence from Barrington Stage, which had its world premiere starring Jane Atkinson at the Dorset Theater Festival in Vermont. It has ambitions of going elsewhere and was well recognized at the Berkshire Theater Critics Awards. And Michelle, it's always good to see you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mark. It's nice to see you too. I have to say, one of the highlights of my year this year, besides all the work and how busy and crazy it was getting to know you. I really have enjoyed that and enjoy your show. And thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, we knew each other professionally before this year, but this was the first year that we actually got to meet.
Exactly, and chat on the show and all those good things. So that's been fun.
Yeah, I've been enjoying watching your career progress, particularly with this play, The Shot, which I did not see in Great Barrington. Because I was on a hiatus at the time that it premiered. But people said that one of the reasons it was really a powerhouse was the way you took the story and this play and kind of catapulted it into something, as they say, with legs. And now other theaters across the country are jumping on it. So where does The Shot go in 2025?
The Shot is going to, in January, from the 7th to the 12th, we'll be at the Playmakers Rep in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, at the university there, which is a lovely theater. And we're very happy to be there. And it's also our star, Sharon Lawrence's alma mater. So she's super excited to be doing a show back at her home university theater, and her family is still in the area. She grew up down there. So we're super excited about this one for a lot of those reasons. And then after that, it's going to, when I don't have dates yet, but because we had to reschedule, but it's going to be at 10 Chimneys, which is out in Wisconsin, which was the summer home of the Lunt Fontaine acting dynasty. It was their summer home, which became a museum, and then they've opened a theater there, and apparently it's a lovely place, which I'm really excited to see. I haven't been there yet. So we have those two shows lined up, and prior, we, as you mentioned, we started in Great Barrington, did a short run here, took it to the United Solo Festival in New York, and won all the top prizes there, which was very gratifying. Did a run at New Jersey Rep, out in Seattle. So yes, it has been around the country at this point.
How did the playwright find you? Did Great Barrington find you? How did you get involved with this in the beginning?
Well, Robin Gerber is the playwright, and my husband, Robert Egan, ran an organization for many years called the Ojai Playwrights Conference out in California, which is a new play development organization, one of the best in the country. He's since stepped down since we moved back to the Berkshires, but he ran it for many years, and Robin was actually a volunteer there because she moved to Ojai from Washington and wanted to get to know some theater people. And she had written a book about Katharine Graham about leadership. And while she was writing that book, she came across a story that had never been told about the fact that she was an abused wife, that her husband, Phil Graham, who was the publisher of the paper, was extremely abusive and then ultimately shot himself in the head in their bed. So that was the story that she thought, that doesn't belong in this book, but that's an interesting story that has never been told about how does a woman grappling with such, just the limitations psychologically and the hardships that she was put through, triumph and become one of the most important public figures of the century in publishing. So that's really what she wanted to write about. I got involved because I knew Robin from OPC, and she asked me to get involved. She got Sharon Lawrence, and the three of us have been together now for almost 7 years working on this play. And we've always kept the team together. We're very close collaborators. We change it every time we do it. We try to add something. Like we just completely rewrote the opening last week for this new production. So we're always tweaking it. Doing more tech stuff that had been pretty limited previous productions. So I'm excited to have another shot at it.
Yeah, I know that every time you go into a new theater, you have to make changes to accommodate the size of the stage and the shape of the theater, plus what their audiences expect. But do you do a lot of revisions to the script based on the fact that the three of you have worked together on it for so long?
We have done changes to the script pretty much in every production. Sometimes it's not that much, but like I just mentioned, we did rewrite the opening for this production. Robin was feeling very strongly that with, especially, I think it was yesterday, the House and Senate just shot down this bill that would protect journalists from a persecution by the government, which is a real, slippery slope that we're all very concerned about, and something that, Catherine Graham would be rolling over in her grave. So she rewrote the opening to try to lean into that subject a little bit. And so as things progress and because history repeats itself, as we know, and as we grapple with our reality here in America, we try to reflect that in the play as it moves forward.
A lot of your work that you do as a director is new work that has never been done before, or taking a play from its workshop status to a new production. What intrigues you to do that as opposed to going in, let's say, and directing an Arthur Miller or an Edward Albee or Shakespeare?
Good question. I haven't really ever done any directing of classic plays. I've acted in them. I was involved in a Shakespeare company in Los Angeles, the LA Women Shakespeare Company, with the wonderful Lisa Volpe, and I directed her quite a bit there, acted in shows. And I did a couple things that had been produced but were still relatively new plays. But basically, my interest is building a play from the ground up. I guess the attraction of that to me is having kind of a blank slate, and you're not influenced by what other people have done before, and you're not trying to top it or change it, or it's just whatever your imagination can bring to what's on the page without any preconceived ideas about what that should look like. I love that feeling. In fact, when I'm directing something that has been produced, I really, like, a lot of people will want to go see it, or they'll want to watch the tape for when it was in New York or whatever. And I usually don't do that. I don't really want to know how they did it, because I just want to make it my own. And I think one of my, a signature of mine as a director is finding interesting ways of interpreting what's on the page. I hope that's what I'm aiming for anyway.
Since you've relocated from LA back to the Berkshires, and you grew up not that far down the road from the Berkshires, our theater community that we both work in has really become an incubator for new work. Why do you think that new plays get developed here in the Berkshires and in Western Mass and Greater Hartford as much as they do, or almost as much as they do in New York?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is sometimes the shows that have been in New York and made a big splash in New York are difficult to get the rights to for theaters, or expensive to get the rights to, although they do those as well, obviously. And I also think that it's kind of far enough away from New York where you don't have critics kind of breathing down your neck as you're trying to birth something new, but you do have the sophistication of the audience and the sophistication of the team to put on a production that is very worthy of those prying eyes, possibly, but you don't, it's the old model of trying out a show out of town. That model is a little outdated at this point, because shows are so terrifically expensive to produce wherever you are. So I think the Berkshires is just a good incubator. There's a lot of talent here. You don't necessarily have to have New York stars, for example, to put on a great show and have people come. There's a lot of local talent that have a following, and so I think that's one of the reasons. And people go to the theater here, and there's 5 equity theaters in the county, so it's a pretty ripe for place to work and to develop work.
What made you come back to the Berkshires from California?
Our youngest kids went to college, and we always were kind of obviously you anticipate that as they get closer to that milestone. And we said at that point that when we have an empty nest, as it were, we don't really want to stay in LA for various reasons. LA was very good to both of us. We worked there, we raised our kids there, had great careers, but it's not a place that you necessarily want to grow old. I mean, it's a very youth-oriented culture. And we always felt like the Berkshires were people that have that a combination, but a lot of people here that had gone off and done some really interesting things and then came back here or just came here. So we always felt that we would have a community here based on our history in the theater. And it's true that that when when we were just looking to move and we were considering the Berkshires, every time we were here, we had a friend, oh, I'm designing a show at Barrington. Oh, I'm acting up at Williamstown. Oh, I wrote a play that's going to be at Berkshire Theater Group. We always had people coming in and out of town. And we did consider moving other places around the country that we visited, but we thought, that's never going to be the case. Like Asheville, North Carolina is a lovely place to live, I'm sure, but will we really have friends coming through? And not in the same way that it happens here. So we just felt like we'd have kind of a built-in community. And I think when you move somewhere, after you've raised your kids and you're older, that's not necessarily that easy to find. I hear that complaint a lot from people who are trying to, reimagine their lives for their third act. And it's not always so easy to find that community. And that's really the main reason. And of course, I'm from here. My parents were still in Westfield. My mom has since passed away. And my dad is still at 94 almost next week. Happy birthday, Dad. He's still here. And I wanted to be close to my parents as they were getting older. And we couldn't be happier. Absolutely thrilled to be here. And I love my life here. I love the opportunities that I've had as an artist. And just the beauty of it and the people, we're very happy with the decision.
Yeah, I grew up in Springfield and went away and did my time in New York and Washington and Houston and came back. And there's something about the artistic community here in Western Massachusetts, the people I've met in the last 20 years that have become important parts of my creative and my professional life as well as my personal life. I can't imagine wanting to live anywhere else.
Yeah, I feel the same way. In fact, when I travel now, whether it's on vacation or working out of town, which I do a fair amount of traveling, I always miss home. I'm always homesick. And that's not a sensation that I really was familiar with. I was always, when I lived in LA, like I said, I loved LA for the time that I was there. When I was over it, I was over it. I don't have that much of a desire to go back now, although our kids live there. So we do go back and obviously and visit, but I'd never felt the same homesickness that I feel for here when I'm not here. There's really no place I'd rather be. And that's a wonderful feeling.
And in the years that you've returned and been here, you've been able to collaborate with a lot of other people that are Berkshires based.
Definitely, yes. Well, I had a history with Shakespeare and Company going back to my teenage years when I lived here as a kid. Because I grew up in Pittsfield and then moved to Westfield after the GE plant closed. My dad lost his job, and so we moved to Westfield when I was in 5th grade, I guess it was. And so I didn't really have a lot of childhood friends from my time here when I lived here as a kid in this area in the Berkshires. But when I got interested in acting, I did the Shakespeare and Company and Winter Intensive Workshop with Tina Packer and Kristen Linkletter, and I started working with that company and training with that company. So I had a history there. So Tina Packer was the first person I called when I came back, and I said, because we had stayed in touch. She had worked, as I mentioned, I worked with LA Women Shakespeare, and she had directed for us a few times, and I was her assistant. So we had stayed in touch over the years, and they were very welcoming to me. I acted at Shakespeare and Company. I've directed a few things there, and so that was the first call I made was to Tina, because she's really a mentor of mine, and I'm just thrilled that she's still here and still working, and she's a real inspiration at. I don't want to say the number, but she's been doing it a long time.
Yeah, she's a veteran, we could say, of Shakespeare and the theater all over the world, and she chose to create Shakespeare and Company here.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason for that. Of course, when she did that 40 plus years ago, it wasn't quite the same landscape as it is now. But there was, a lot of things were happening already in those days that was part of but she was definitely, I think, one of the main reasons that this became such a fervent theater community.
And the community changes. When I was looking back, I was researching a show that I had reviewed maybe 20 years ago, and pulling up my files of what I had seen 20 years ago. That's before Wham Theater became something big, and Chester Theater had gotten as big as it is, and Theater Works in Hartford had emerged as a major theater company. Boy, the landscape has changed here so much, and with the arrival of the Great Barrington Public Theater, which is probably the most exciting theater to emerge in our area. We used to be just kind of like a summer theater area, and now we're year-round.
Yes, yeah, and people are always interested in finding things to do. They don't do a full, at least most of the theaters around here don't do a full year-round season like they do at, say, the Majestic or other places. But they do have programming now through the winter, which they used to just, put a closed sign up and dust it off in the spring, and that's not really the case anymore. I was just at a reading last night at Great Barrington Public Theater. And they're doing talkbacks and interviews and readings and things over the winter, and as are other theaters. So they're definitely catering to more year-round people, I think, now than they used to.
And January is a slight month in terms of new productions compared to the rest of the year, which is great for us theater reporters because we get a chance to sit back and breathe a little bit. But there is plenty opening. And the summertime may bring its light comedies and musicals to the area, but there's some real serious theater on the boards in the area theaters, plus the 10 by 10 New Playwrights Festival at Barrington Stage later in the winter, and Goodspeed Musicals Festival of New Musicals. So a lot of emerging theater is happening here during January and February.
Yes, and I do think that just getting back to what you brought up earlier about all the new work that's done here, I do think that really helps the content and the programming to rise above just kind of populist boulevard comedies that you might see at summer stock that were traditionally the purview of summer stock. You're right, they do challenging work, they do interesting, sometimes dark work. It's not just about crowd pleasing. And I, as a theater goer, because I'm not only a theater maker, I'm a avid theater goer, and I try to see as much as I can. I appreciate that diversity as well in the programming.
I do too. I mean, I love the light boulevard comedies. I love the musicals, from a personal perspective, but I like to see challenging theater work, and we get it.
Yes, I agree. And I'm particularly drawn toward pieces like that. Things that are not necessarily wrapped up with a silver bow at the end. These things that really make you think about what you just saw and what did it mean. And to me, that's very interesting, as I said, as both a theater goer and as a theater maker.
The last time we got to hang out was with the Berkshire Theater Critics Awards when we were live streaming it and doing a pre-show, and you were one of the shows you were involved with was a nominee for a couple of awards, and you said that your schedule was packed with the shot and some of the other things you're working on. How long in advance are you connected with projects that are going to happen in 2025?
It depends on the project. Like the Playmakers Rep show that's coming up next month has been on the books for a year. The Berkshire theaters are all deciding their seasons now, and I've got different plays at different theaters that they're considering. I haven't gotten anything solidified yet for next year, but this is about the time where decisions are being made, and I'm about to hear yay or nay on various projects at various theaters. So that's been my focus pretty much since my last show closed, other than getting ready for the next production, is just pitching plays, reading a lot of plays, seeing a lot of plays, anything that I'm interested in, who could I bring to the table, what theater would it be right for. I would love to go back to Dorset. As you mentioned, I worked there this summer, Dorset Theater Festival in Vermont, and just had a marvelous time there. Such a great company, great people. I'd work there again in a heartbeat, as I would at any theater, really, around the Berkshires too. But that was a particularly good experience.
And you like working with playwrights that are developing new works. That's kind of the métier that you've fallen into.
Yes, I think it's because I feel like my history as a writer, because I was a professional writer for many years, writing screenplays, and I just wrote my first play. But I think that my experience with that and dramaturgy as an actor, and as a director, really helps me with new plays. Because I'm looking at it from a slightly different, I can look at it from a lot of different angles. Like, does this, like I always, when I'm writing, and even when I'm developing something that I haven't written, most of the time I will read it out loud and actually kind of act it out, because that really shows me where the dialogue is falling flat, or when something doesn't sound right, or something's difficult to hear or say, or and those are all very useful tools to have, in my tool belt, in terms of working with playwrights and trying to get the best out of them, and which is ultimately my job.
Now, you worked for such a long time on The Shot with Sharon Lawrence. Is this the kind of play that another actor could do, or can you only envision Sharon Lawrence playing the part?
No, we always imagined Sharon doing it to a certain point, and then another actor is taking it over. We are really hoping for, and there's a bit of interest at various places, but what we're really hoping for is to do the New York production, which would probably be off Broadway. And Sharon would like to take it to that point, because we've all worked so hard. I would like to take it to that point. Sharon would like to take it to that point, and at that point, it would get published, and then it's out in the world, and then anyone can direct it, anyone can get the rights and act in it, and I think it will be. I hope at that point, once it's published, it will be, often produced, because it's a wonderful role for a woman of a certain age, which I know, I'm sure you're aware, there's not that many. Another thing I would like to point out is I'm always very interested in work that stars women, that has a lead female character. Most of my plays, that is the case. In fact, the one I did up at Dorset, True Art, was written for a 40-year-old woman, and I talked to the writer about making her, mid-60s, and seeing what that did to the play. And we did a lot of reimagining that play. The whole concept was changed based on that casting change. That character change. So it's a demographic that I feel really strongly about representing, and one that I think has an audience, especially here in the Berkshires.
And one of the things that I think about often, a few years ago, Hartford Stage championed the fact that they had appointed a woman artistic director, as though this was a new and novel thing. Well, it is to Hartford, but when you look at the theaters in the Berkshires, Barrington Stage was founded by a woman director, Berkshire Theater Group, Shakespeare and Company, Wham Theater have women at the helm directing them, and I think that Williamstown is managed, or was managed, by a woman. The equity level of the theater that we're doing in Western Massachusetts has a lot of opportunities for women.
I agree, and that's very for me, one of the reasons why I was really attracted to this place is I saw opportunity. Sometimes you go to a community. It's interesting. My husband ran the Mark Taper Forum out in LA for many years. He was the producing artistic director, and with Gordon Davidson, and that was a place I always wanted to work as an actor. And when I met him, after I'd already had a writing career and I wasn't really looking for acting work at that point, out there, I met him. We actually started dating. I said, I always wanted to work at the Taper, and I could never get an audition. Like I just couldn't get in there. And he said, well, you should have just called me. He said, people called me all the time, and I would say, come on in and have a meeting. But that would never have occurred to me. Like I just thought, I can't do that. I can't call the head of the theater and say hi. But that was a real learning experience, having that conversation with him. And when I came here, that's exactly what I did. I called up every artistic director. I said, hi, I'm here. This is who I am. Can I have coffee with you and tell you about myself and get to know you? And for the most part, the people were very receptive. And I built a lot of relationships just by being a little bit more bold than I had been previously in my career.
But I don't know for you or for me whether we had to be as bold as we were to ingratiate ourselves in the theater community. When I went back to reporting theater, having a theater background, having performed, having worked as a publicist on arts organizations, it wasn't that difficult to ingratiate myself to the arts community here. And you, in the few years that you've been here, have become an integral part of theater and film here in Western Mass.
Yes, thank you. Not so much film. I've acted in a couple films that were shot here, but mainly just because friends of mine were making the movies. But certainly, yes, certainly theater. And theater was my first love, and not something that I really pursued that much out in LA because, I was raising kids, and when you have young children, a lot of actors will tell you this. It's hard to be at the theater every night, missing dinner, putting them to bed, and so I just kind of put it on the back burner. And I thought, once I'm through this phase, that I want to get back to that. And I thought, what better place to do it than what is essentially my original home.
And I'm so glad you came back.
Oh, thanks. I am too.
Well, we've been chatting with Michelle Joyner. She grew up in Pittsfield, spent her high school years in Westfield, and has brought her skill set back to Western Massachusetts. And I hope that the new year brings us both a lot of great opportunities here.
Oh, thank you. I hope so too. I hope we'll be seeing you on the boards, as they say.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And I was saying today earlier that if none of my plays to direct work out for this season for next year, because they don't always. There's a lot of things that are constantly in flux, and what theaters need, and how much they can spend, and there's a lot of decisions that go into a season. I think I'm just going to try to find, if I don't do that, I'm going to just try to find an acting job here and, be on stage for this as opposed to behind the scenes.
Well, it'd be good to, I love watching your work behind the scenes. If you decide to star in something, I'm there opening night. How's that?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. We've been chatting with Michelle Joyner, and this wraps up this edition of On the Mark TV and Radio. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next week.
I don't want a lot for Christmas.